Welcome back, motorcycle enthusiasts, to part 6 of our motorcycle safety training series. We again join Motorcycle Police Officer Paul Carroll to discuss some of the most crucial aspects of motorcycle safety. In this video, we delve into the dangers of drinking and riding, the most dangerous time of the day to travel on a motorcycle, and how to use lane positioning to stay visible while traveling in traffic.
So we talked about helmets, we've talked about lighting. Let's talk about just the operation of the bike and when you're out there. In times of the day that become more dangerous than others. We talked about the death rate in the state of Colorado and how much, a good third of that was on helmet riders. Even with that, a good 30% of the fatalities in the state of Colorado are people under the influence of alcohol. Now that's always a sensitive topic because when you go to a lot of these bike rallies or bike events at dealerships, what are they serving at the dealerships? Beer. Free beer, right? It's a good draw. Let me talk about that because I, like most Americans, I like to drink. But I do not drink when I'm on my bike, ever. I wait till I'm done riding for the day before I drink. And this is fundamentally why. We literally took a motor officer, a motor instructor one time, and we wanted to compare their riding skill set because we kept preaching this, that you shouldn't drink and ride, just like you shouldn't drink and drive. But obviously, drinking and driving is not illegal in most states. It's driving intoxicated at a certain level that becomes illegal. Impairment in Colorado is 0.05. Legally intoxicated is 0.08. So what does it take to get to that point? Well, I don't know. Body composition, metabolism, height, weight, body fat, all that make a difference on whether or not your exposure to alcohol on a regular basis, how much is your brain affected by it, make a difference whether or not you're legally intoxicated after 2 beers, and what kind of beers did you drink? Were they IPAs, 8% alcohol, 9% alcohol, or were they Coors Light at 3.2? When you're operating the bike, always remember this: your body is fundamentally part of the operation of the machine. The geometry, the aerodynamics, the lean, all of this is affected by your body and what your body does. Your body is not really affecting your car whatsoever. Your steering input, brake input, acceleration on the gas pedal is all based on your perception and your reaction times, but your body is not physically part of the operation of the car. You're doing things in there, but if your balance is off in the car, but yet you've still got good judgment of traffic around you, and you still can see clearly, you're probably going to be okay. On a motorcycle, however, that's a total different animal. The first thing alcohol affects in your brain is balance and coordination. Well, what are the 2 fundamental things you really need to operate a motorcycle? Is balance and coordination. You're shifting gears, you're operating clutch, brake, throttle, your perception of the distance of the ground, when you're stepping down on the ground, when you're stopped. All of this are affected by alcohol, first and foremost. So somebody drinking a beer or 2 beers and then getting on the bike is a far different animal than somebody drinking 2 beers and getting in a car. Because fundamentally, if you misjudge your step distance, put your foot down, bike goes down, breaks your leg, comes down on top of you, all because you misjudged where the roadway was at the time, because alcohol is affecting that balance and coordination. All right, so you go to hit your brake, and then your brake, clearly you're getting way too much brake. You don't have ABS on the motorcycle. You're locking the wheel up, and next thing you know, you're losing control of the bike and you're getting thrown off the motorcycle. So always remember that. And I try not to preach at people, but understand what you're doing when you drink and get on the bike. The first thing alcohol is going to affect in the brain is balance and coordination. The next thing it affects is judgment, speed, those kind of things. So when you're doing that, you're putting yourself in that much more jeopardy of not being able to read a corner, how fast you're in a corner, how tight the corner is. A lot of motorcyclists, that we talk about that were killed in accidents that were under the influence of alcohol generally did not hit another object or a car, they hit a fixed object. A lot of them cornering because they misjudged the corner. A lot of our corners in the state of Colorado, you start pushing up into the canyon and the mountains, are not, they're not an equal radius. they turn tighter and tighter as you're into the corner itself. Well, if you've got a beer or two in your system, are you going to actively judge that corner and understand that that's a reducing radius turn? You go into it way too fast, and you lack the coordination to appropriately slow down, and now you're just jamming the brake levers and you're starting to lose control. So there's a lot of things that go on there that a sober brain may not be as challenged to deal with as an impaired brain. And they may clearly not be at a legal level of impairment. They may simply lose that because they have very little skill set as a motorcyclist, and then you're adding an impairment in there that's going to make that judgment just that much more compromised, and that's when you get into issues. Okay, so I would always encourage you that when you're out there on the roadway, enjoy yourself when you're off the bike, but when you're on the bike, you need to be prepared to be dealing with what's in front of you. Just by being on the machine itself, you're over 30% more at risk of serious bodily injury or death in an accident versus a motorist. Why? Because a motorist is protected. A simple fender bender in a car is a much different animal than a motorcycle. Generally, a fender bender on a motorcycle means serious bodily injury or death because there's no protection whatsoever. So remember that when you're out there. All right, but you'll see it a lot. And just understand, your surroundings. That when you ingest alcohol, you may want to take a look at how long you're going to be someplace before you get back in the saddle of the bike. If it hasn't metabolized yet, and you do have that level of impairment, and all of a sudden your coordination is just slightly askew, and your skill set's not really good, you can put yourself in a position unnecessarily. Okay? And we took a motor officer one time, and we actually had him ingest one New Belgium fat tire, in a period of about 10 to 15 minutes. And as soon as he was done that, we put him on the bike and had him go through cone patterns. And what he was normally riding super clean was just destroying. Why? Because he lacked that ability. The judgment. He couldn't judge space, distance, timing, coordination, maintaining friction zone, throttle control, rear brake, all that was very challenging to do. Always remember that an impaired brain, even to the slightest degree, has a hard time of dividing its attention. It can only do one thing at a time.
You don't think it had anything to do with him trying to get the piece of that shit here?
Well, yeah. But that just goes to, and that's on an expert rider. This is on, on a guy that's got, hundreds of hours of training. One New Belgium and putting him in a cone pattern. But remember this, that particular, cone pattern would absolutely floor most of your average riders just to get through. We're talking about turning a bike around at 17 feet. You're all the way over onto the frame, full steering lock, and maybe it's multiple of these in one single pattern. So, but that just shows you how it'll affect the brain. We just wanted to show that clearly, even with the most expert riding skills out there, that even one beer is going to have an impact. Would that affect them out there on a normal ride on the roadway? Maybe not, if there's no challenges out there. But the only way we can actually accurately judge it is put him in the same environment he's in sober, and put him in the same environment with one beer in the system and see how it affects it. And clearly it did. So, when you're at a bike event and somebody's had 2 or 3 beers and now they're getting on a motorcycle an hour later, then it makes you wonder why we have issues and incidents out there. We see it every year. We see it every year on the realities run. We have people that crash and get seriously injured. And it's a lot of different things. It may not necessarily be impairment, lack of skill. A lot of today is that you have professionally performing motorcycles being ridden by amateur riders. You get a kid that's 19 years, 20 years old, that's on a Honda CBR 1000 RR. Bike produces 189 horsepower, top speed of 220 miles an hour, and now all of a sudden he thinks he's going to go out there and ride like he's a professional rider in MotoGP. And guess what? He ends up going off the roadway and not. Why? Because he clearly is operating a machine that produces professional results, but he's an amateur rider, skill-wise.
Discover the ultimate apparel at Ride Fear Free and elevate your style with our exclusive collection. Designed for both men and women, offering a wide range of products of shirts, hoodies, headbands, ball caps, and more. Visit our online store today.
So these are some of the things. Time of the day. I've always been asked this question, what's the most dangerous time of the day to operate? Between 6 and 8 o'clock. People seem to think operating at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning drugs, operating that late night, dangerous wildlife. Those incidents are very, very rare. The most dangerous time of the day is from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. That narrow window in there. Why? Roadways are still heavily traveled. You have a higher level of impairment that are out on the roadway because it's kind of dinner, post-dinner time frame. So all these things in combination make that particular time frame dangerous. How do we come up with that? It's because that's when most crashes. In response to crashes, very seldom, and now I work, graveyard shift for a number of years. If it's an intoxicated motorcyclist, we may respond to a crash. A crash between a motorcycle and a car, very rare. Any crash at 2 a.m. by anybody is usually a result of impairment because there's nobody on the roadway, and you can't explain how did I run off a straight stretch of roadway at 45 miles an hour and strike a telephone pole, and there's nobody else on the roadway. You got there for a reason. That's usually because of impairment. So when you look at when you're going to ride, where you're going to ride, some people have a very big apprehension of riding on the interstate because of the speeds, lots of cars. I would tell you riding on a country road or riding on a state highway with opposing traffic coming within a foot of you, the opposite direction, is far more dangerous than riding on a bike. Now, does that make it challenging? Sure, because a lot of things are going on in front of you, but it doesn't make that roadway more dangerous. The roadway actually is safer than riding on Highway 14 or a county road, because if somebody comes across the lane position, there is very little time to react and know that they're coming across the lane because they're so close to you. Out here, it's generally Jersey barrier that are separating you, some sort of median, but you've got space, all right? Always remember this, when you're out on the roadway, the best thing that you can do to protect yourself is increase space, all right, and time. The more time you have to be able to perceive a threat and react to it, the greater chances of survival.
Well, actually, a question I had is, we just around here, between with the lane shifts and everything, and people basically not giving you that space. You create the space, they fill it. You create the space, they fill it. What's the way around that?
Yeah, there really is no way around it. I find that the best place to be in when you're in a 3 or more lane interstate is I stay in the middle lane. Okay? We always talk about lane tracks: left lane track, middle track, right track. So for motorcycles, we have 3 positions that we can ride: left, center, or right. I generally, if I'm following a car and I'm maintaining that distance, I try to maintain the left wheel track all the time. Why? Because cars will straddle obstacles. All right, if you're riding right center on a car in a center lane position and they straddle a big blown out freaking semi tire or an obstacle in the roadway, then guess where you're going to be right. Okay, so increasing that distance and understanding that, listen, while we may be in a hurry and impatient, when you're on a bike, you're always going to lose. You're never going to win. Okay, if you impact somebody, you're going to lose. To them, it's going to be no big deal. For you, it's going to be a very significant deal. So increasing that space. I stay in the center lane because I don't have to worry about merging traffic and creating that space for them, and allows me flexibility. You stay in the left lane, you're kind of locked into that left lane. You got nowhere to go. Same thing with the right lane. You could be locked in there as well when you got merging traffic coming on and traffic trying to come off. So a middle lane position is usually the best. And I usually generally stay in the left lane track on an interstate. If I'm on a state highway, however, and I have a lot of traffic coming at me, so there's a lot of vehicles, because one person that seems to want to drive under the speed limit has got now everybody else is backed up and close. Drivers become very apprehensive, or not apprehensive, they become very anxious and they lack patience and they want to pass and get around. The problem is if I'm riding in the left lane track, these vehicles are coming at me and I'm riding in this lane track going the opposite direction and there's traffic stacked behind me. The further as I get back in that lane traffic, from that lead vehicle that will be coming at me, they don't see me whatsoever. So by increasing my chances of being visible to them, the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to shift out to the right lane track of that lane, because then it opens up that visibility to everybody. All I'm doing is increasing my angle. And by increasing the angle, then what I've done is give everybody a much longer chance or much longer time frame to perceive me coming out.
So my thought on that is I used to ride that way and then I shifted over to the left because I had somebody behind me try to pass thinking they couldn't see me because of the vehicles ahead. And they came up and they tried to fill that gap where I was because I was on that right hand side.
Well, you just have to watch how far right you get.
Okay.
And again, when you're on a roadway, shifting lane position should be something you're doing all the time, especially when you're riding by yourself. Shifting lane tracks and increasing visibility should be something that you're doing. That same sort of methodology, if I was going down, let's say Harmony, and you got multiple lanes going one direction, and you know, a lot of these intersections are held on solid red arrows, but now with this new amber flashing arrow thing that we did in the state of Colorado, there's that control, and now people are making left-hand turns on solid greens coming the opposite direction across multiple lanes. Well, you need to make sure that when we're doing that, remember this, is that traffic is stacked there in that turn lane and traffic's coming at you, you know, you've got to look at what lane position am I in? Can that particular oncoming left turn see me here? Or am I better to move out? Can they see me better here? Because and it's especially imperative when you have traffic that you're going along with that is stopped in this left turn lane and they're all stacked up. And you're riding that left lane track, that car on the other side of the intersection does not see you whatsoever. And it's not going to see you until you clear and get up next to that lead car that stopped the opposite direction. Okay, so that's when you need to take a look at when you're making these approaches on intersections, and maybe I'm better off in the middle lane position and not in the left lane position, because that way cars can see me. And it's very, very common to have those sort of incidents with bikes and cars when we're allowing traffic to make a left turn across multiple lanes. And we're doing that more frequently now with these amber flashing arrows that are out there, you know, because you're not controlling the intersection on a red arrow. And that's what makes it dangerous, because they can make a left turn, they get impatient, they think that, oh, I'm good, and they jump out there. That's where, all of a sudden, that's where the lighting comes in. When people say, well, I didn't see them. If it's a single headlamp, you know, you've done nothing to change your lane position, but they actually did not see you, period, until it's too late. Okay? So think about that. Even with, you know, additional lighting, the clear waters with the motor lights on the front of the bike, if your lane position is so tucked in hard left in the left lane track and left lane itself, and you're going past traffic that is stopped next to you, that opposing turning left lane does not see you. All right? Understand? So move out, increase angles. All right, increasing angles can increase the visibility of the image. Okay.
Are you a retired motorcycle officer looking for an exciting new venture? Ride Fear Free offers you the opportunity to own your business by providing motorcycle skill training and marketing services to motorcycle dealers. Connect with riders and dealerships, drive sales, and promote safety. Learn more at ridefearfree.pro, and let's make an impact together.
Okay, we talked about a lot of different things, just things that you can do right now, without skill set, things that you can do right now to mitigate your risk out there. You know, they're not complicated. They don't cost a lot of money. Just paying attention, making good decisions, increasing time, space, distance. That in itself, that one piece in itself will mitigate risk on the roadway tremendously. But you see a lot of people that don't. You know, most people, you know, ride way too fast, too close. You know, and if you don't have the skill set to compensate, when all of a sudden you realize that this is a freaking holy shit, this is a reducing radius turn, and I'm in this way too fast, and I don't know what to do to get out of this, you know, it's going to be a bad situation. Okay, so always making sure that we're increasing time and distance, you know, doing, and we'll talk about it outside, there's basic fundamentals of, you know, making sure that we're going into a curve, you know, at an appropriate speed, that kind of piece. You know, understanding the roadway. You know, riding through Big Thompson Canyon in the daytime is much different than riding Big Thompson Canyon at night. You know, especially if you're not familiar with the canyon, you don't know where certain curves are up. You know, so it's one of those things of, you know, familiarity with the roadway, that kind of piece. But you can, I mean, I've traversed the entire country, coast to coast. The Pacific Coast, the Gulf Coast, Key West and back, Western Canada, and even if you're unfamiliar with the road, but you know the route that you're going, understanding the route, where you have to go, increasing time and space and distance, you'll find that you'll have a much more rewarding ride and a relaxing ride, and a ride that's a lot more safe. You know, anytime we start pushing speed, you're just asking for problems to happen, because things are gonna come at you too fast. Okay?
Thank you for watching. Please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Remember to click the notification bell to be alerted when new videos are posted. And we look forward to you joining us in the next video.